A very good evening to you. And welcome along to Sweet and Swing once again here on Manx Radio. I'm Howard Kane, of course, and the next hour is a bit of musical bliss. What have we got? Bit of Louis Bellson, some Irving Fazola. We've got some comedian harmonists, yeah, we found them. Cyril Stapleton, Mildred Bailey. But to start off and celebrate the warmer weather, how about a bit of Latin? Oh, of course, Edmundo Ross.
At the age of 9, my father said to me, "Son, you're growing fine, I'm very proud to see. Soon you'll be a man with all the zest for life. But your greatest test will be to choose a wife. Be careful, son, be careful. All that glitters is not gold. Be careful, son, be careful. Moving around both the young and the old.
You must watch them twice, that is my advice.
I'll say they're nice from far, but they're far from nice. It's no sport, it's not a game to play. Once they have you caught, you cannot get away. Behind every great man is a woman, that is true. But she has a hand in every downfall too. Be careful, son, be careful. All that glitters is not gold. Be careful, son, be careful. Moving around both the young and the old.
You must watch them twice, that is my advice.
I'll say they're nice from far, but they're far from nice. Every lady is a woman through nature's plan. Every woman is not a lady, do understand. To recognize the difference really means a lot, as they both pretend to be what they are not. Be careful, son, be careful. All that glitters is not gold. Be careful, son, be careful. Moving around both the young and the old.
You must watch them twice, that is my advice.
I'll say they're nice from far, but they're far from nice. start to panic if they see a mouse. Yet they aren't afraid to tackle a man as big as a house. Quick to shed a tear to prove they are the weaker sex. They've been fooling men for years, my son, with that pretext. So be careful, son, be careful. All that glitters is not gold. Be careful, son, be careful. Moving around both the young and the old.
You must watch them twice, that is my advice.
I'll say they're nice from far, but they're far from nice.
Well, I hope that had you up dancing with your maracas in hand, if that's not a euphemism. Edmundo Ross, of course, with some wise advice. Well, possibly, you can take your pick on that one. Papa says. Don't know if everyone necessarily agree with the views, but there you go. Yes, certainly all that glistens is not gold, or glitters is not gold. That's true enough, isn't it? And choose your partner carefully. Well, I suppose that's true as well, isn't it? Well, a good way to get going in any case. Nice, up-tempo, warm music for what has been relatively warm weather here on the Isle of Man for the last few days. TT is rapidly approaching, so a cynic might say, well, it won't last. And far be it from me to agree with that. We'll see. Suffice to say, it was a glorious TT last year from beginning to end, from practice week right the way through. I don't think there was a drop of rain as far as I recall. The chances of that happening 2 years on the trot seem slim to me, but global warming, well, we just don't know, do we? How are we getting on in any case? Hope you are enjoying life wherever you might be, and I know there are people listening in all sorts of places, and I do have to say we recently had a message from Abu Dhabi. That can't be bad, can it? Listening in Abu Dhabi. Well, that's rather enjoyable. Well, I'm saying that. I've never been to Abu Dhabi, but it sounds like a good place to listen to me, and I suspect it's probably warmer than the Isle of Man, so if you like warm weather, it's the place to be in any case. Edmundo, from all accounts, a lovely character, hugely popular at the time. Some lovely notes from Royston and Herbert, writing on that collection, Celebration album of Edmundo Ross. And he says, as wartime schoolboy, I have very dear memories of one unmistakable household name saying, after about half a chorus of the Cuban love song, and a very good evening to you. This is Edmundo Ross. And as he added, he didn't really need to say his name. The voice was distinctive enough. So was the music. Excellent, unadulterated Latin rhythms. Unashamedly popular tunes delivered with musical skill and endearingly slightly downplayed presentation. As though because the music tended to be bright, even the slow tunes, he marks, had a moving rhythm. The presentation was the opposite of brash, an unbeatable combination. And he goes on to remark that when he formed the Rumba Band in 1941, it filled the space which was left vacant when Geraldo swapped his 30s Gaucho Tango Orchestra, and we played that several times, of course, here on Sweet and Swing, for a standard, or more standard, at least big band lineup. But Edmundo never deviated. His band was always Latin, or at least Latin American, and always had that great swinging sound. And Royston says, I met Edmundo in the 1960s when I was a BBC sound mixer and later as a trainee producer for the old Light programme on Band of the Week, and many more times then for Radio 2. He was always courteous, unfailingly kind, and always produced the goods when required. He was an absolute pleasure to work with and a delight to know. And Celebration is a fitting title for this timely release. Edmundo is now 80 years old. That was 1990, and I think he went on to live to 101 if memory serves correct. Lovely way to get going. Plenty coming up, as I say, including we'll have some more jazz in 3D as well, and I think we'll dig back into some Perry Como. It would be rude not to, would it not? But for now, a little bit of Ted Weems.
next door. You were Prince Charming I'd been waiting for. I helped you with your studies, you taught me how to dance. We always were together, I thought I had a chance. But you grow indifferent as the days go by. I'm a little lady, I'm not small fry. There'll be a change in the weather and a change in the sea. From now on there'll be a change in me. My walk will be different, my talk and my name. Nothing about me's gonna be the same. I'm gonna change my way of living, and if that ain't enough, I'll even change the way that I strut my stuff. Nobody wants you when you're old and gray. There'll be some changes made today. There'll be some changes made. There'll be a change. There'll be a change. Things will be different, I mean what I say. I've got a feeling that someday you may say there'll be a change. There'll be a change. Nobody wants you when you're old and gray. I'll get along until that day. We'll make a new start. You'll still have my heart. There'll be some changes made.
Ted Weems with Little Mary Lee. I was just thinking when I mentioned Abu Dhabi, I didn't actually say who was listening in Abu Dhabi. So if you're listening again, Martin Curtis out there in Abu Dhabi, thanks for listening. I hope the weather's nicer than the Isle of Man. Although I have to say the Isle of Man weather's been very good of late. Credit where credit's due. Might be not quite as warm as Abu Dhabi, but pretty good. But anyway, I hope you're enjoying the show, Martin. Hope you're listening again, and drop us a line anytime with any thoughts or any requests you might like. Why not? Little Mary Lee singing with Ted Weems there, and great character she was. Born back in 1921, and at the age of 13 skipped off school to take part in an audition for Roy Fox's band. She hadn't thought anything would come of it. She hadn't told her parents about it either. So when it was announced in a local store in Glasgow that she was singing, I think her parents did a bit of a double take, to say the least. She had not really thought anything would come of it, but the American band leader, very taken with her voice, expected her to win the competition, which she did, and it was then agreed she would sign a contract on her 14th birthday when she joined the band in London. And in September 1935, off she went there from Glasgow, complete with chaperone, originally advertised as the singer Mary McDevitt, but later, and perhaps more successfully from a marketing point of view, Little Mary Lee. And then went on she lived to the age of 80, so she did actually live, or at least beyond 80, I think. Certainly she went all the way through, not all of them do, lived to a good old age. But she did very nicely indeed and rubbed shoulders with a lot of the great and the good. Went on then to play with Jack Payne's band, although never actually spoke to him apparently. All the transactions done through his manager, so it must have been a bit of a hard time. She got away from there as soon as she could, joined Jovial Jack Jackson, enjoyed that time from all accounts, but she never recorded anything with either of those bands, and eventually decided all the relentless touring, which of course they did pretty relentlessly, was a bit too tiring, so she quit that and took a position at a Soho nightclub. And then a wonderful story of there. One evening she was occasionally accompanied by a young blind pianist who happened to be called George Shearing. I think he did all right, didn't he? And then one night she was unexpectedly asked to sit in at a particular table with what she described as some absolutely charming boys. It was a very noisy evening. When she got up to sing, no one shut up so they could barely hear her, and eventually a loud voice shouted, "Give Mary a chance." The whole club went deathly quiet, and the boys turned out to be the famous and highly feared at the time Massini gang, one of the big gangs of Soho. And she was sitting chatting with them, none the wiser, and they quite took to it. But it all ended well. She went on for a short spell with Ambrose, but very rarely paid, because, as is well documented, Ambrose was rather famously fond of gambling large sums of money, most of which weren't his. It was actually the money that the band was due to be paid, but he'd gamble it, and if he lost it, then the band didn't get any money. That's the way it used to... That's rock and roll, wasn't it? Rock and roll back in the days of the swing bands. You don't think about it, do you? And then, again, cutthroat business. Sometime later, she was rehearsing for a broadcast with Ambrose at the Mayfair Hotel. Another young girl came in, 15-year-old. She decided to sing absolutely beautifully. Her name was Anne Shelton. And as a result, it turned out that it was the last time that Mary ever performed with Ambrose. She was dropped, and Anne Shelton was taken up as well. I told you it's cutthroat. Well, speaking of the war, I think, put paid to this next group, which was a shame because they were sort of Germanic Mills brothers in many ways. And this was harking back to last week when we had a lovely letter from Linda Brown I was talking about, and she made this a request, and I thought, that's a goodie. I didn't have any available at the time, but I do have now. She said, I'd love to hear some of the comedian Harmonists, the 1930s group from Germany. They had to disband for all the wrong reasons, but left us with a great legacy of musical comedy, and just good music as well, great singing. Sounds like a good call, Linda. Here they are.
Sonnenschein, brauchst du mehr, um glücklich zu sein? Wochenende, Sonnenschein und dann mit dir im Wald allein. Weiter brauch ich nicht zum Glücklichsein. Wochenende und Sonnenschein. Über uns die Lerchen zieht, sie singen genau wie wir ein Lied. Alle Vöglein stimmen fröhlich ein. Wochenende und Sonnenschein. Kein Auto, keine Chaussee und niemand in unserer Nähe. Da tief im Wald nur ich und du. Der Herrgott drückt ein Auge zu, denn er schenkt uns ja zum Glücklichsein Wochenende und Sonnenschein. Nur 6 Tage sind der Arbeit, doch am 7. Tag sollst du, sprach der Herrgott, doch wir haben auch am 7. Tag zu tun. Wochenend und Sonnenschein und dann mit dir im Wald allein. Weiter brauch ich nicht zum Glücklichsein. Wochenend und Sonnenschein. Über uns die Lerche zieht, sie singt genau wie wir ein Lied. Alle Vöglein stimmen fröhlich ein. Wochenende und Sonnenschein. Kein Auto, keine Chaussee und niemand in unserer Nähe. Tief im Wald nur ich und du, der Herrgott drückt ein Auge zu, denn er schenkt uns ja zum Glücklichsein Wochenende und Sonnenschein. Wochenende und Sonnenschein und dann mit dir im Wald allein. Weiter brauch ich nicht zum Glücklichsein. Wochenende und Sonnenschein. Über uns die Lerche zieht, sie singt genau wie wir ein Lied. Alle Vöglein stimmen fröhlich ein. Wochenende und Sonnenschein. Kein Auto, keine Chaussee und niemand in unserer Nähe. Tief im Wald nur ich und du, der Herrgott drückt ein Auge zu, denn er schenkt uns ja zum Glücklichsein Wochenende und Sonnenschein. Blumen im Garten, so 20 Arten von Rosen, Tulpen und Narzissen leisten sich heute die kleinsten Leute, das will ich alles gar nicht wissen. Mein kleiner grüner Kaktus steht draußen am Balkon, Holleri, Holleri, Hollero. was brauch ich rote Rosen, was brauch ich roten Mond, Holleri, Holleri, Hollero.
Und wenn ein Bösewicht was Ungezogenes spricht, dann hol ich meinen Kaktus und der sticht, sticht, sticht.
Mein kleiner grüner Kaktus steht draußen am Balkon, Holleri, Holleri, Hollero.
Man findet gewöhnlich die Frauen ähnlich den Blumen, die sie gerne tragen. Doch ich sag täglich, das ist nicht möglich, was sollen die Leute sonst von mir sagen? Mein kleiner grüner Kaktus steht draußen am Balkon, Hollerari, Hollerari, Holleraro, bam, 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 bam. Was brauch ich rote Rosen, was brauch ich roten Mond, Hollerari, Holleraro, Holleraro. Und wenn ein Bösewicht was Ungezogenes spricht, dann hol ich meinen Kaktus und der sticht, sticht, sticht. Mein kleiner grüner Kaktus steht draußen am Balkon, Hollerari, Hollerari, Hollero. Piep, 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 piep.
Heute um 4 klopft's an die Türe, Nanu Besuch so früh am Tage. Es war Herr Krause vom Nachbarhause, der sagt, verzeihen Sie, wenn ich frage, Sie haben doch eine Kaktus auf Ihren kleinen Balkon, Holleri, Holleri, Hollero. Der fiel soeben runter, was halten Sie davon, Holleri, Holleri, Hollero.
Nimmt ihn mir aufs Gesicht, ob's glauben oder nicht, nun weiß ich, dass Ihr kleiner grüner Kaktus sticht.
Bewahren Sie Ihren Kaktus, gefälligst anderswo,
Holleri, Holleri, Hollero.
Good stuff. And they knew what they were doing, don't they? Really good close harmony singing. Does put me in mind of the Mills Brothers in many ways, that sort of sound. Hope you enjoyed that, Linda. Little twofer of the comedian Harmonists. And as I say, super popular in their day, internationally famous at the time. All male, as you can gather, close harmony ensemble, and were at their best between 1928 and 34, before the war, of course. And one of the most successful musical groups in Europe in many ways. And may as well give them their name. Harry Frömmermann, Asbjörn Ari Leichenhoff, Eric A. Colin, Roman Sikowski, Robert Biberti and Erwin Boots, who also played the piano as well. Great name, Boots, B-O-O-T-Z. Wonderful sound. The voices blended beautifully together. And yes, they were very, very popular for a long time. But of course, as the years went by and we headed towards World War II, they ran into trouble with the Nazi regime because three of the members, Frömmermann and Colin and Sikowski, were either Jewish or of Jewish descent, and Boots had a Jewish wife. And so the Nazis made the group's professional life more difficult. They banned pieces by any Jewish composers and then eventually prohibited them from performing in public altogether. And their last concert in Germany was in Hanover, well before the war, in fact, in March of 1934. And they then sailed over to the United States and gave several concerts. But like a lot of these things, they were fearing internment if they stayed there, and they eventually returned home. But it caused a lot of stress in between the groups, and there was a lot of disputes. And eventually, Frömmermann, Sikowski and Collins, perhaps not surprisingly, fled Germany and formed a new group in Vienna, which also performed under the names Comedian Harmonists and just Comedy Harmonists, with a new piano or a new pianist and a bass and a high tenor. And the remaining members in Germany likewise replaced their counterparts and called themselves Das Meistersextett, as the authorities wouldn't allow any English language names. But as you can imagine, neither of them ever really achieved the success of the original group, which is often the way, isn't it? And by 1941, both the groups broke up. They all survived the war, but they never reformed after that. Not as that group in any case. And yeah, they were largely forgotten, but apparently, I was just looking on Mr. Wiki for a second, and the group remained forgotten until a filmmaker, Eberhard Fechner, created a 4-hour black and white television documentary. 4 hours! A 4-hour documentary. You don't get many of those, do you? In which he interviewed the surviving members in 1975. And by that time, they were scattered throughout the world, and the documentary aired over 2 nights in Germany in 1977 and caused a great resurgence in the music of the comedy or comedian Harmonists, with some of their records being re-released on vinyl. Well, that's not bad. I wonder if it's on YouTube. I'll go and take a look afterwards. Anyway, thanks for that call, Linda. We enjoyed that. The Comedian Harmonists. I had of them. I've forgotten all about them. And another story to tell in the annals of Sweet and Swing. Piano genius of Art Tatum, of course. Just the runs are amazing, and the fact that the fluency, and you never hear a bum note, and of course he was blind. You think, how? He just doesn't... Well, I sort of know how in a way, but it's still a miracle when you hear that fluency. You get the same with George Shearing. You position yourself in the middle of the keyboard. Once you found middle C, you get your hands like a typewriter or something, the keys are under your fingers. But then the keyboard is obviously... it stretches either side, and how you, I don't know. Practice, I suppose, is the answer. Practice, like everything. Deep Purple, Art Tatum at the keyboards. Now, we dug this one out. I say dug this one out, unwrapped this one, to be more accurate. Perry Como, 4 classic albums plus Relaxing with Perry, Make Someone Happy, Sentimental Day, and Wednesday Night Music Hall, which was sent to me quite recently from our friends at Avid. They're 4 classic albums plus, going for ages, this series, going back a good 20, 30 years or more. Yes, 4 albums plus 5 bonus tracks on 2 CDs, all at a very reasonable price if you like your CDs, as I do as well. And can't go wrong, really. So we started off with this album. I'll have another one from this, actually. The first CD, A Sentimental Date with Perry. And this is Blue Room.
have a blue room, a new room for two rooms, where every day's a holiday, because you're married to me. Not like a ballroom, a small room, a whole room, where I can smoke my pipe away with your wee head upon my knee. We will thrive on, keep alive on just nothing but kisses with Mr. and Mrs. on little blue chairs. You sow your trousseau, and Robinson Crusoe is not so far from worldly cares as our blue room far away upstairs.
They will thrive on, keep alive on, just nothing but kisses with Mr. and Mrs. on little blue chairs. She'll wear her trousseau and Robinson Crusoe
Is not so far from worldly cares as our blue room far away
You can't get sweeter than that, can you? Or more sentimental. A very appropriate title. A Sentimental Date with Perry Como. I mean, that was just oozing sentimentality. Or you could just call it schmaltz or whatever you like, really. But you know what? Still makes you melt, I think. And no matter what he sings about, for me, it's always Christmas. It's just the voice, I think. You get programmed, don't you, if you have certain Christmas records that your parents played from the year dot. Perry Como was always one of them. And he can be singing about spring and summer and going skiing for all I know, and it'd still be Christmas. It's just the way it works, isn't it? Funny thing, you mind. Perry Como. We'll maybe try something from the next album next week. Wednesday Night Music Hall. I think that's a little bit more sort of up-tempo, but you can't go wrong with a bit of Perry, as they say. You can't go wrong with a bit of Louis Bellson. Actually, this is on a collection from Avid as well, with Louis Bellson, and lots of concerto for drums, Drummer's Holiday, The Hawk Talks, Coleman Hawkins, of course, with Louis at the drums. This is from an album called Concerto for Drums, and it's Charlie's Blues. Oh, that's a swinger, as they say. Fantastic brushwork there, and I love that during the drum, or just after the drum solo, where he sort of going bang boom onto the cowbell as well. Fine drummer, and of course that double bass drum, which he always espoused so much. Louis Bellson at the drums, wonderful stuff. Concerto for Drums by Louis Bellson. Louis on the drums, of course, and again, yeah, just that brushwork, that smooth, to get it like that at that speed, not easy at all, really good. Charlie Shavers at the trumpet, Zoot Sims on tenor sax, Don Ebony piano, and George Duvivier at the bass. That one's staying in the case. We'll hear more from that one. Really good swinging stuff. Speaking of that, it's Sweet and Swing, of course, here on Manx Radio with H through until the top of the hour. Squeeze as much as we can in, so better not rabbit too much, shall I? Suffice to say, if you have any thoughts, or if you, like we heard before from the Faraway Club from Abu Dhabi, can you beat Abu Dhabi? Alice Springs, Antarctica, I don't know. Abu Dhabi, I'm liking that very much indeed. But if you're in the Faraway Club, you're listening somewhere via the wonders of the web and enjoying the music, drop us a line anytime, get a mention, and give me a request as well, and we can do it. We will oblige. But if you've got any other thoughts, or anyone you'd like featured, or just some nice stories perhaps of back in the day, always love a nice story about music that Pete might have meant something to you, drop me a line, howardkane@manxradio.com, Kane at Manx, MANX, radio.com, all in one, of course, lowercase. Or, as usual, if you like snail mail, and who doesn't, takes a bit longer, but it's got more of a feeling to it, hasn't it? Howard at Sweet and Swing, Manx Radio Broadcasting House. And that's Douglas Head, in Douglas, funnily enough, the Isle of Man. And that code is IM15 Bravo Whiskey BW. And this is the wonderful Mildred Bailey.
Whether you are here or yonder, whether you are false or true, whether you remain or wander, I'm growing fonder of you. Even though your friends forsake you, even though you don't succeed, wouldn't I be glad to take you, give you the break you need, more than you know, more than you know. Man of my heart, I love you so. Lately I find you're on my mind more than you know. Whether you're right, whether you're wrong, man of my heart, I'll string along. You need me so, more than you'll ever know. Loving you the way that I do, there's nothing I can do about it. Loving may be all you can give, but honey, I can't live without it. Oh, how I'd cry if you got tired and said goodbye. More than I'd show, more than you'd ever know. Loving you the way that I do, there's nothing I can do about it. Loving may be all you can give, but honey, I can't live without it. Oh, how I'd cry if you got tired and said goodbye. More than I'd show, more than you'd ever know.
How about that for another little two? For Mildred Bailey starting us off there, or Mildred Rinker. She was actually born a Native American jazz singer and started out during the 30s, known as the Queen of Swing or the Rocking Chair Lady or Mrs. Swing. Recorded all sorts of sentimental reasons, I Let the Song Go Out of My Heart, of course, Small Fry, Rocking Chair, perhaps one of her most famous. She grew up in the Coeur d'Alene Reservation in Idaho, where her mother was an enrolled member, and then the family moved to Washington when she was around about 13. And her brothers, also, of course, musicians. You might have heard of Al Rinker, who started to perform as a singer with Bing Crosby. I think Bing did slightly better and became a member of the Rhythm Boys. And as adults, Charles Rinker was a lyricist. Miles Rinker was a clarinet and saxophone player who went on to become a booking agent. And she married Mr. Bailey, of course, and decided to keep the name because she thought it actually sounded less German. It was Ted Bailey. She married, later divorced, but kept the name in any case because she thought it sounded better. Following that, we had a little bit of Faz, Irving Fazola. Again, it was actually, his real name was Irving Prestopnik. Not too easy, Irving Prestopnik. A fairly unromantic name for a very warm, bluesy New Orleans clarinetist, but it was his real name. The Fazola it was one of these sort of nicknames thing again. It came out quite by accident, and it was really down to the fact that he was a very, very good sight reader. So he could improvise, sure, but not all improvisers are good readers. Irving was both great improviser and a really good reader. And once when he went in to play with the Roma Band in New Orleans, a very large band playing only written arrangements, no improvisation, just playing straight off the sheet music, Louis Prima ribbed him by doing him Fazola from the tonic sol fa, Fazola. And that's how it stuck. Hey, it's the Fazola guy, Fazola. And it became Fazola, or Faz, and it stuck ever since. And that's, whether he likes it or not, how people remember him now. Long gone, I think. Irving Fazola, a fine player. We better have some from our three-dimensional jazz. We've been enjoying this little collection. Three-dimensional sound, jazz and vocal collection, 23 classic and rare recordings from the 20s to the mid-40s. Hearing the wonders of revolutionary new listening experience. In other words, they've been cleaned up and made artificially, as it were, to sort of sound as if they are in stereo, recorded in modern times. And very successfully, it has to be said as well. Here's Dickie Wells and his orchestra, and they've got rhythm. They definitely do have rhythm. And a great sound as well. Dickie Wells and his orchestra. I told you I'd squeeze in as much as I could. And we have right up to the bar. But fear not, we will be back same time, same place next week. Until then, cheerio.